Hey, how's it going? Welcome to episode 10 of FPL Hotline. I'm your host, Matt Tomo, joined as always by C4, Gasch, and Tazz. What's up, guys?
I'm back.
Hey, what's going on? All right, so let's Gash, good to have you back, bro. We missed you last week. It was a much shorter episode without you. I guess you must talk a lot. But yeah, let's get started with a little game week 5 recap here. Can you believe it? Shout out to C4 for the caption there. But Taz, why don't you start us off? Tell us your main thoughts from game week 5.
The capture kind of captures Spurs duo return points once again. The same thing for Everton duo of DCL and Rodriguez, and kind of anyone who wildcarded and brought in those assets definitely was happy. But one of the other key takeaways I had was that like this game week, like almost all the premium and even cheaper options return points, so it's kind of like such a high scoring game week, and you could have even no matter who you captain, you were gonna get points from him. So it's kind of happy that I captain Kane, who returned 2 goals and assists, but at the same time it was like a stat like the FPL put out that like 50% of people captain either Son or Kane, and when everybody else returned points, it kind of makes you feel less special. But I'm still very happy with how my wildcard team turned out. And then the other thing that Timo Werner, after coming off after scoring a goal for Germany, finally scores for Chelsea, and it kind of makes me just put like those Chelsea assets on the watch list a little bit more. Even now that I did own Pulisic, I put him in my wildcard team.
Gash, how about you?
Yeah, I as you know me, always focused on Man United, so I was really happy to see 3 goals after the 85th minute. Kind of surprised actually, but it was explosive against a purely crap Newcastle side that only morons are fans of, right, C4? But yeah,
I definitely wasn't good talking when Fernandes missed the penalty.
Yeah, so I was really pleased with that. So that's kind of making me think a little bit more about the Man United players, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on. And then again, Taz mentioned DCL, and he's now scored in every single game he's played in the league this season, and that includes games against Spurs and Liverpool. So I'm starting to feel a lot more confident about Everton creating chances and DCL getting on the score sheet, kind of regardless of who they're playing against. And then my last kind of thing I was focusing on was the Chelsea game. I think that 3-3 really kind of sums up what everyone thinks of Chelsea right now, where they'll score the goals if the attackers start clicking, but they're also defensively pretty shaky still. I would just keep that in mind, I think.
Yeah, good point. C4, how about you, bro?
79 points moving up into the top 20K. I'm pretty happy with this week. Like Taz said, I'm a little disappointed that I think it was 45% of people captain Kane. And I feel like a lot of stuff happened outside the actual games that matter more going into game week 6, like the VVD injury and stuff that happened midweek in the Champions League. But the only thing I will say, I'm strongly considering using my wildcard now just because of that Liverpool injury, and that can shift my outlook going into game week 6.
Yeah, you mentioned that Liverpool injury. I'm sure everybody knows by now, but Virgil van Dijk tore everything in his knee, ACL, MCL, meniscus, PCL, some ligaments I never even heard of he tore. So he'll probably be out for like a year, possibly even a year and a half, depending on how that goes. So big ramifications for the Liverpool defense. We'll get into that a little bit later. Actually, you know what? Let's get into it right now. Virgil is down, so is it time to sell Trent and or Robertson? With Virgil gone for as long as he might be, clean sheet potential goes down for sure. Gash, I know you and I both had the Liverpool double, so I'm going to start with you. Are you keeping that Liverpool double, or what are you doing here?
So I don't know if I would have, transferred one or both of them out if I hadn't wild carded, but because I'm on my wild card, I did remove Trent, and I think my reasoning was that I really felt uncomfortable with Virgil van Dijk out for so long, and Alisson also out for the next couple of weeks, and we lost Taz right there, but I'm sure he'll be back soon. So I chose to drop Trent. Robertson's looked a lot better this season in terms of how he's actually played and also in terms of underlying stats. So I have some notes written down here that Robertson has had 4 shots in the box. Trent's had 0. Robertson's had 2 big chances and Trent's had 0. and Robertson's had 22 penalty area touches, and Trent's only had 6. So I think I am sticking with Robertson for the time being because I think he'll continue bombing down the flank for Liverpool. But I don't think it's worth it anymore to have the double up that I thought I was going to have all season. But these injuries happen sometimes, and I think they'll lose at least a couple of clean sheets without Van Dijk in the team.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I'm also planning on dropping the Liverpool double up. Can't do it this week probably because of transfers. I don't have any saved up, so we'll see. But I agree with you that Robertson seems to be the better option than Trent as of right now. So I'll probably try to drop Trent if I can, save that extra 0.5 as well. Tazz, welcome back. We lost you for a minute. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm here.
What are you thinking about Trent and Robertson?
So the main thing that I wanted to bring them in. Yes, like Liverpool clean sheets is like enticing, but at the same time they're very attacking fullbacks, and I kind of even if Liverpool aren't keeping that many clean sheets, I still expect Robertson and Trent to return points from scoring, either scoring goals or assisting. So I'm still gonna keep Robertson unless the team plays totally different without Van Dijk in these next couple of game weeks. Then maybe I'll transfer him out. There are like some good options cheaper that then will enable you to upgrade elsewhere. But I still think I personally in my wildcard switched Robertson to Trent to save the $500,000. I think Robertson's been outperforming Trent in most of the stats except shots on target, but Trent did take 4 free kicks so far, so that kind of boosts his stats. But yeah, I don't think Van Dijk will be that affected. And today in their Champions League match against Ajax, they were able to keep a clean sheet, so it's kind of not. I don't think Liverpool are that doomed. I still believe they should be keeping clean sheets against some of the lower side teams.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned seeing how they do the next few weeks. They got Sheffield this weekend and then West Ham after that. Then it gets a little harder with matches against City and Leicester. So, yeah, I think worth holding on just for a little bit, see how they do without him is not a bad idea. C4, what are you thinking?
Today I was thinking about how I kind of regret falling for the Liverpool double before the season because I think like 75% of my drafts only had Robertson in there thinking, he'd be the better value. Now, I don't play my wild card. I think at minimum I take Trent out this week on a transfer. I'm looking either at a Chelsea defender, is attractive, maybe getting someone from the Wolves backline, but I just don't see how you can justify keeping both of them right now.
Yeah, especially if the Virgil goes down. I think it's I think we could say rest in peace to the Liverpool double officially. So yeah, any final thoughts on that? No? All right, let's move on. Gash, let's focus on you for a little bit here. You're now the third FPL Hotline member to play their wild card. I played mine, I think, week 3. Tazz, you were last week, right? And Gash, here you go, game week. Ahead of game week 6. Why don't you take us through your team and tell us what you're thinking?
Yeah, sure.
Can we pull up the team?
Yeah, I think C4 has the graphic. He looks confused. There it is. All right, so here is my wildcard team. I was hoping to hold this wildcard until the double digits, but I think the Virgil van Dijk injury really put me over the edge in terms of not being able to handle all the moves I wanted to make without taking a significant number of hits. So I opted to keep Ryan and Walton as my 2 keepers. I'll touch on that in a second when I get to my defense, but I saw a stat that Brighton have been incredibly unlucky to concede the number of goals that they have. For example, over the weekend with Crystal Palace, they didn't keep a clean sheet because of a penalty, but Palace had an expected goal of like 0.01 or something like that. Like they were absolutely awful, which I think was also a credit to Brighton's defense. So I'm happy with Ryan, and I didn't want to spend the extra 0.3 or whatever it is now to bring Martinez in, the Villa goalkeeper. And then I have Walton, of course, as my backup, so that once he's back to full fitness, he should be the Brighton backup. So it's nice to have a 8.5 total goalkeepers with both on the same team in case one gets hurt. My defenders, I went with Target from Aston Villa, Dallas from Leeds, Robertson, Walker-Peters, and Kilman. So I did take out Trent, like I was mentioning. It helped free up funds in the rest of the team, and I wanted to keep Robbo in there, like I said, because he's still flying forward and creating a lot of chances. So I think he'll still get attacking returns and clean sheets here and there. Dallas, I was looking at the Leeds fullbacks, and Ayling is going to be playing as a center back most likely for the next couple of weeks, with one of their normal starting center backs injured. So he's probably going to slide in there. So I'd rather have the attacking fullback. Target is one of my 3 Aston Villa players. At 4.5, I think he's a pretty good deal. He gets forward quite a lot, and Villa have had actually the lowest expected goals against in the league this season so far. So they've been looking very solid defensively as well. And that's against, of course, the Liverpool game. So I think they'll continue to be solid. Walker Peters I kept in there. I like him as an offensive option from Southampton with clean sheets here and there as well. And then Kilman is the 4.0 that I have. There's a chance he gets benched with a couple of Wolves defenders coming back to full fitness, but at least it's a 4.0 that has a chance of starting. So I'm glad there to free up a little bit of money and keep him in the team. And he's also played really well the last couple of weeks, so who knows? Maybe he'll retain his spot.
Question.
Yeah,
How
go
come
ahead.
we went with Kilman over the likes of Mitchell, who's a 4.0, who's starting now, and Ferguson from Paz, who may be starting in a couple weeks?
Well, Mitchell is now maybe a 4.2 with the price rises, I think.
Right. He did go. Okay.
Patrick Van Aanholt's also back, so he's probably like a top 3 player on Palace. So I really don't see Mitchell starting long term with Van Aanholt back from injury. And Ferguson.
How about Ferguson?
Ferguson is still. I haven't seen any updates on his injury, his return to the pitch. So while at the beginning of the season we all thought it was going to be within a couple of weeks, and there's still nothing on it. So I'm kind of skeptical about how long that might take. So I'd rather have like a non-injury flagged 4.0 at least sitting there. So just in case he's not automatically disqualified from being hurt.
For sure. Okay.
So moving on to the midfield, I have Grealish at 7.1, who I was actually considering before the season, and I didn't pull the trigger on it, and now I'm regretting it. He's looked fantastic so far, playing off the left wing for Villa. He creates a great number of chances. I have the number here, but he has something like he's the second most touches in the penalty area for all midfielders behind Salah only. So he's getting up the field a lot as well. And then my third Villa player I have here is McGinn, a 5.5. So he's a pretty cheap option. And the reason why I went with that is because I wanted a 5th starting midfielder who also had the chance at some returns. So he's with the way Villa have been playing, he's been scoring a decent number of points. I think he's returned in the last 3 games. So I'm happy to have him. He's a pretty quick player, and I like the way he plays as well. So I think those two could look good. And I'll get to the forwards in a second. But if Brewster becomes a starting forward for Sheffield, then it's between Brewster and McGinn as my 8th attacker. So I'm okay with that most weeks to have a choice between those two. Salah kept in my team. He's Mo Salah. What more do you need to say? He's on penalties for Liverpool, and although Mane's had maybe a little bit more, looks a little better recently. Not that Salah's looked bad, but Mane's looked really good. But I just can't count out Salah, especially with the number of penalties being given so far this season. And he just always looks so eager to run and in such good shape that I really think that he'd be the one, taken off last if they were routing a team, 4-5-0 or something like that, or 4-4-5-4 now with Van Dijk out for the season. I have Sterling in there because I had KDB, and KDB, of course, is still most likely hurt for another couple of games. So I just my Man City placeholder in there, and I'm thinking about keeping Sterling, or there's a chance I move him down to Bruno Fernandes. But I wouldn't want to do anything with the funds just to get back to KDB once he's fit. So it's most likely staying Sterling for now. And then James Rodriguez is creating a bunch of chances for Everton, and they've looked, of course, really, really good. So I had him in there pre-wild card, and I kept him in there.
Quick question. Mm-hmm. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think before the season you went with a Southampton triple, and now you're going for the Villa triple. So those are 2 pretty unconventional triples, if I may say. So yeah, I just wanted to congratulate you on the size of your balls for doing something like that.
Yeah, so I almost went with the Southampton triple preseason, but then Armstrong got hurt right before the season started.
Oh, you switched it.
I pulled him out. I probably would have stuck with it. But I don't know. I feel pretty confident about this. This way, I don't have. I'll get the clean sheet covered from target without having Martinez in goal, who I believe is the most owned keeper now in FPL, or at least he's up there. He's price risen like 3 times already.
Yeah, he's been great.
Yeah, no, I feel good about all these guys. The alternative to McGinn in the 5.5 range is someone like ASM or something. And well, ASM looks really good when he's playing, but I'd rather have a slightly worse player from a team that's playing really well than an ASM on a Newcastle team that are relatively inconsistent and, may I say, pure crap. Might be more accurate.
Right. And a quick note on KDB. Yesterday, Pep Guardiola said we expect Kevin to return in the next few weeks. So the bald fraud not giving us much to work with there, but at least we know he's probably out for this weekend. So, so Sterling makes more sense. Okay, and how about your forwards?
Yep, so then I have DCL in there. Pre-wild card, not much needs to be said. His highest expected goals in the league, and the man's just killing it this season. He's returning every single game. He scored a hat trick, and he actually scored a hat trick in the cup as well, even though it doesn't count toward the FPL points or anything. But he's just looked really, really solid, and I don't see Everton slowing down unless there's some major injury issue or a COVID strike. But I kept him in there. I brought in Brewster as a 4.5. He's Sheffield's record signing, so I think they're going to be, especially with their lack of goals, I think they'll be turning to him sooner rather than later. And if he's can continue the promise he showed at Liverpool, I think he can cement a spot as a starting striker there. And it'll be good value. A 4.5 starter is good pretty much anywhere across the league, especially at Sheffield, where the other strikers aren't really at the level where they'd be displacing him or anything if he gets into a good run of form. And then Harry Kane, just playing really, really well this season. Something that might go a little under the radar is he's actually created the most chances in the league, big chances in the league this season. He's created 7 of them, and no player has even has 6, I don't think. So he's scoring goals, and he's also creating a lot for his teammates. And I think that'll only continue once Bale gets back into full fitness, and you could just see him so easily setting up Son and Bale for a bunch of goals while adding his own. So I'm really happy with that pick.
Just a quick word on Brewster. If he does anything, he'll probably be Sheffield's best player. As of right now in FPL, their highest scorer is McGoldrick with only 14 across the whole 5-game week. So, if Brewster does pretty much anything, he's of great value. And Kane as well is probably the best passing striker in the world at this point. It's got to be between him and Benzema, but he's just been unreal. So that's another solid pick. Any final thoughts you want to share about your team? Anything that you're thinking of, anything that you may change before the deadline in 2 days?
Yeah, so I think the only thing I had mentioned was the Sterling move, and I am still kind of considering Sterling to Bruno, but I think I'm most likely going to stick with Sterling. Bruno or United play, I think, Chelsea and Arsenal the next 2 games. It's Chelsea this week, and I think it's Arsenal the week after, so I might just give it a few weeks and reevaluate once KDB is closer to being fully fit.
I have a question that kind of goes out to all of us, since some of us have, Everton assets. Gash, you mentioned briefly that, you kind of, after the sample size of like 5 game weeks up to now, you're kind of confident that Everton are able to create. How do you feel now that Richarlison is, I believe he's suspended until November 21st. So that's like until game week 9. Do you think Everton can still create as much, or are you a little bit more worried?
I don't think they'll slow down enough to make me want to take their players out of my team. So while I can see a little regression there, I think that mostly they'll still be playing well enough that I'll be happy to have him in my team. The other thing I do want to mention is actually it's funny. I had Gordon as my midfield fodder since the start of the season up until now. So he was taking up an Everton spot. He actually price dropped to 4.4. The reason why I had him in there is because he looked really, really sharp whenever he played last season. And now, of course, he wasn't getting a spot in the team and hardly even making the squad. So it'd be really funny now if he comes in and starts, banging in goals and assists and flying with this Everton team right when I take him out. But yeah, no, to answer your question, I'm still confident about them, keeping their players and having them in my team.
If you were asking all of us, Richarlison is a key part of their team, obviously. But just the way that they're flying and the way they're playing and looking at their next few fixtures, you said he's going to miss the next 3 weeks. So that means he'll be missing Southampton, Newcastle, and Man United. I'm sure they'd love to have him for that United game, but the other 2 fixtures just don't seem too awful. So, yeah, I don't have any – I mean, I have James Rodriguez at the moment, sorry, trying to get Calvert-Lewin in. And Richarlison going down doesn't change my mind. I'm still trying to get Calvert-Lewin in. So, yeah, it doesn't change my mind. C4?
I just have one question for Gash's wildcard team. Where's Sergio Aguero?
Kuhn is on my radar. I really want to bring him in, and actually, what I'm thinking is, I never want to take out Harry Kane when he's in form like this. But once the fixtures turn, maybe find a way to. I doubt I can work him in with Aguero and Kane. So it's really a question of whichever one of them hits better form.
Just because while you're talking, I was really brainstorming how I would get if you went Sterling to Fernandez, McGinn to 4.5, and then Grealish to like a 6.0, and you take Calvert-Lewin to Aguero. Nice double premium.
Oh. Well, at that point, I'd suggest you to manage your own fucking team and leave me to do what I want.
I think you're doing the same.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about Chelsea for a minute. Is it time for Captain America, Christian Pulisic, to enter your FPL team? Christian returned last week, I believe, was his first action. Am I right?
He may have played something the week before. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Christian's back, Captain America. How you feeling about him, Tazz?
I brought him into during my wildcard team. Kind of sad to see they didn't return any points, but I'm kind of happy to see Chelsea scoring goals. Makes me a little bit angry that Werner scored 2 after dropping him 2 weeks back for doing absolute shit the first 3 game weeks. But at the same time, it kind of Gasch hinted at it earlier. Just a very inconsistent Chelsea team that, they might score 3, but then they conceded 3 right away. So it kind of makes me, I was considering Chelsea defenders for a little bit, but when they're conceding this much, I'm gonna hold off on that. But I'm kind of still excited about Pulisic, and I think he's gonna go off soon.
Yeah, I think he's the most important player on that team. Low key, not necessarily best, but just we saw the way he kind of ran that midfield towards the end of last season, especially. I'm trying to find a way to get him into my team. It's probably going to take a few weeks for me to even have that opening available. But yeah, I love him. Obviously, best American of all time already, probably. So definitely excited for him. Gash, how about you?
Well, I think Michael Bradley's the best American of all time. So
there we go.
I'll throw that out there.
Couldn't be Trinidad and Tobago.
I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to cause strife between all of us.
I hate Michael Bradley. Just want to put that out there.
On Chelsea, though, I think the one thing putting me off Pulisic right now is that in the couple of games he's played, it seems like Lampard's been playing him off the right-hand side, where he's a lot less effective. And I would hope that that's because Ziyech is still injured and not ready to fully come back. So he's kind of just accommodating for that and playing Mount off the left a little bit. And I really hope that he puts Pulisic back on the left and then Ziyech on the right. But it's becoming less and less of a secret that Frank either really loves Mount or Mount has some really incriminating evidence against Frank and his family because for some reason he keeps playing him all the time. So in the back of my head, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow this continues on for a couple weeks with Pulisic playing off his less favored right-hand side and Mount off the left or some other weird variation. So I do have my eyes on Pulisic. I would say Pulisic and Ziyech are the 2 I'd want from there as the 2 cheapest of that, attacking group. But I'm still a little wary of bringing them into my team.
Yeah, Ziyech also came back last week. Came on from Mount, like you said, but yeah, we don't know if that might be a tough seat to take from Mount. Surprisingly,
yeah, apparently can do no wrong or something.
Yeah, like it doesn't, and for Southgate too, for England, it's just insane. C4.
I agree with Gash on this. I think we need a mountain investigation to what's going on. Following up on that, though, Christian Pulisic, second best American player of all time. I think he's still the best Chelsea asset. I think this is the lowest he'll be all season. I agree with Taz. I already have him in my squad. I took out Hammers for him. He's staying in there. He's fixture proof to me based on what we saw last season. And the only other thing I would say is I kind of wanted to take him out today when I saw him like 50 cents post about voting for Trump, but then that subsided when I thought about, okay, you know what? He's better as an FPL player and not a political pundit.
What does 50 Cent have to do with Christian Pulisic?
Christian Pulisic liked 50 Cent's post about voting for Trump.
Oh. Yeah, let's not talk about that. Any final thoughts on Christian, guys? Good. All right, let's move on from Chelsea to Manchester United. Does a UCL win plus a win over Newcastle in the past few days make you confident in this Man United squad? Let's start with the resident Man United fan, Gasch. Of course, you're probably confident in them, despite Sancho not coming. Didn't get to rub that in your face last week, but
well,
yeah,
just for everyone's background information, I offered to Tomo to make a bet on whether Sancho would join United or not, and he refused. So he gave up that money. So gotcha, I guess.
So you missed out on $10, but your team didn't find Sancho. So.
Yeah. Whatever, man. Anyway, I think United are looking better and better as the season goes on. I think one of the problems was that Pogba was being shoehorned into the team. Not necessarily shoehorned, because he's been, he's one of the best players on the team, but he caught COVID a few weeks beforehand, so I didn't think he was really, back to full fitness, and he was playing most of the match anyway. They've looked a lot better ever since kind of trying out this little midfield diamond. So they played in the last couple of minutes against Newcastle when they scored a bunch of goals. They played against PSG too when Pogba came onto the field. So they started with the back five and then went to a back four. And then the midfield diamond was, I think, Bruno, Pogba, McTominay, and Fred. And they looked really solid. So I think a win like that against PSG, especially in Paris with Rashford scoring the late goal, can really boost the team's confidence and they'll start hitting form. Especially for a player like Rashford, they say a lot of times for strikers, the most important thing is getting in a rhythm of scoring goals and going through the motions. So I think that could kind of kickstart the season from there. I do think in terms of the assets that Bruno is still probably the best one as long as he's still on penalties, which I believe he will be, but it's kind of hard to see because he missed one against Newcastle and then missed against PSG, but it had to be retaken. And then he scored the second time around. So I would say, for me personally, it's Bruno and then Rashford and then Martial. But I'm still a little hesitant on anyone except Bruno just until they really get another game or two with the same form.
C4?
I think I mostly agree with Gasch there. I really like the Diamond 4, but for a little bit of a different reason, because I don't like when United beats Newcastle. I like it because it means Rashford's moving back inside. But I was a little more interested. I want to Gash's opinion on this. When you saw the lineup come out for United against PSG, and they had that freaky back five with Shaw and Tellez over on the left. What's your read on that and moving forward in the Premier League? What you expect to see in the United back four?
Oh, that's pretty common actually for Ali in big games to play a back five like that. He did it a number of times last season with with Shaw as a left center back, and then Brandon Williams as the wing back on that side. So I would expect to see a back four most of the time. And I think it's notable that Tellez came off and Shaw went to left back in the back four. So I think we're going to see a lot of rotation in the left back spot, unless one of them really locks it down. But I would say the back five normally comes out against big Champions League teams or really important Premier League matches.
Tazz, how you feeling about United? Oh, sorry, you got more?
No,
that's good.
Towards the end of last year, I think it was post restart. Everyone was looking to bring in some sort of United defender just because they were really good at. I think it was shot suppression and they had a lower expected goals against. I think a lot of people had Maguire. I personally had David De Gea and paid dividends in terms of the goalkeeping position. We're just interested, if Tellez plus, having those defensive returns all of a sudden he becomes really attractive at that 5.5 option.
Yeah, he certainly could if Shaw gets hurt long term and Tellez is on, as nailed on as a starting left back. then if you watch the game, he whips in crosses. He's a great left foot on him, and especially when he takes the corners.
In swinging corners?
Yeah, he was on the corners when he was in the game, and he was absolutely smashing them in, and they were really, really giving United a lot of dangerous opportunities. So,
Tazz, how you feeling about United, and are you more confident in them after these past few days? Tazz? Oh, I think Tazz froze again. Tazz has been freezing a little bit today.
He's just thinking really hard.
Gasch, yeah, you have a good Tazz impression.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I think Manchester United. I don't know.
All right, let's give him one more second, see if he can come back in. He's loading here. I want to see if we can get to him before we move on to the next question. Nah, I think he's gone. Oh, here we go. Tazz, can you hear me?
Today, yeah.
All right, tell us how you feel about United, bro.
No, I was kind of sad. I mean, kind of happy that I did choose Son, but Son and Rashford are the two players that kind of rotating back and forth. And I was missing out on points from Son when I switched to Rashford, and then I kind of missed out on Rashford when I switched to Son, but Son did bring in points this game week. C4 definitely mentioned something important about considering their defense. I think that's something when I feel like United, they're kind of showing signs of improvement, and then once they catch form, there's something I definitely will consider. But besides that, I think for right now, Bruno and Rashford are the best options, and I would choose Bruno if I had between the two. Him on penalty kicks, but the amount of penalties are being given now this season. It's he's a very solid pick.
Yeah, I have Bruno as of right now. I brought him in last week and captained him, so bit of a roller coaster at the end of the match there. But I feel slightly better about the United assets. Still need a little more from the rest of them. Right now, I would only feel comfortable owning Bruno, but that could easily change in a couple weeks. Martial is a player that I've wanted to get into my team, but he just hasn't showed me anything yet so far. Any final thoughts on United?
Yeah, I would say the last thing is that Tuanzebe is the center back that started for them against PSG the other day, and he had a massive game. So he's had injury issues in the past, but he's a really strong and fast center back. There's a couple of clips of him keeping pace with Mbappe and knocking him off the ball. So I think if he can stay fit, then him and Maguire would complement each other really well. As one as Maguire is the kind of the ball winner in the air, and Tuanzebe can mark any really quick players up top. So I would keep an eye out for that as well.
Is he the likely partner for Maguire when healthy?
I wouldn't say likely, just based on not having seen him for a long time. I think the game yesterday was his first start in 10 months, and 10 months ago he played against Colchester in the FA Cup. But it's mainly because of injury, and I think based off what Ali said about this kind of center back he wants to bring in, that I would think long term they want to see them two together.
Yeah, I mean, he's got all the physical tools, just up to whether or not they can form a good partnership and all that. But yeah, I would like to see something from him. What's his price right now in FPL? Do you know?
I think he actually might be he's either a 4.5 or a 5.
He's a 4.5.
Yeah.
So not an option yet, but if he's starting week in, week out, a 4.5 center back for United is not a bad thing whatsoever.
Yep.
Moving on from United, let's stick with defenders and start talking about the 4 to 4.5 defender range, and specifically Kilman. Is Kilman the new Mitchell? So just real quick, I had it up here. Kilman is the highest scoring defender, priced 4.5 or lower. He's tied right now with Vestergaard from Southampton with 21 points on the year. Gash, you just brought him in, so I'll let you start a little bit. I know you told us a little bit when you were going through your team, but reiterate some of your thoughts on Kilman for us real quick.
Yeah, I just think he's the best option at 4.0, and I want to have one of those in there to not spend too much money on my defense. And he's looked really solid the past couple of weeks where he's played for Wolves with some of their injuries in the back line. So based off some of Nuno's comments, I think he has at least a shot of keeping his place in the team based on his form. So I'm excited to hopefully see him keep starting and keep playing and getting me some points.
Actually, he's up to a 4.1 right now. I don't know if he just rose while we're recording, but still,
sucks for anyone who didn't get him in at 4.0.
Yeah, I mean, a Wolves defender at 4.1 now is definitely a good option. Taz, how are you feeling about him?
I agree. I think it's a great budget option for a solid Wolves defensive team. And you say he's the highest scoring of like cheap budget defender. He only started game week 4. I believe it was his first game, fully playing since the injuries.
He only played in game week 4 and 5, right?
Yeah, and in those 2 game weeks, he recorded 21 points.
Yeah,
and it's the game winner to him in this. So I mean, there's doubts about him keeping his spot, especially with the injuries. Some of the Wolves defenders are injured coming back. But I think at 4.0, if you wildcarding and bring him in, I think it's a great risk to take, because if anything, if he does get benched, that's a 4 million bench player that you have that doesn't start. You're not losing out on much. If he was like more like 5, then I'd be a little bit more hesitant. But at 4 million, I think it's just it's an easy risk to take.
So since you're not on a wild card, would you consider wasting not wasting, but would you consider using a transfer on him, or is he just somebody you would only look at in a wild card situation?
Things like, I feel like if I'm not wild carding and I have, unless I'm completely happy with my attack and I'm on 2 transfers right now and I would lose one, and I could just switch Mitchell for him or something like that, then I would do it. But otherwise, I feel like it's no point to waste unless you personally think he's that much of a differential pick. There's no point wasting a transfer on a budget defender like that, unless you're going for maybe you're considering dropping, you have a Liverpool double up, you're considering dropping Robertson for him or Trent for him and then use that money elsewhere. I feel like just to switch from one bench budget option to another, it's kind of like, I'd rather save the wild card, but at the same time it's up to you to decide how much of a differential he is.
Right. I agree with that. C4, what are you thinking about Kilman?
I agree with Taz's take there, though. It might not be worth it to bring him in on a transfer. I think I would only bring him in right now if I had the wild card, because I don't really want to waste transfers on bench fodder right now. Outside of that, I think it's really cool seeing how this is, I think, 2 years in a row now. Sace was really cheap last year. Now we're already getting a cheap Wolves option this year. I think we've seen with Nuno that he's willing to trust those, let's call it, less proven options, and that makes it more valuable from an FPL perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the Wolves, I kind of also like the look of Semedo. He comes in at 5.5 million, so it's kind of in that price range of your Chilwells and other defenders around that price. But I kind of like him because we talked about Kilman having great success in the past 2 game weeks. Semedo hasn't he hasn't returned more than just the clean sheets, but he does in the final third he has 41 touches, and that's like the second highest ranked for Wolves. And he's he does play that right wing back, but still for a right wing back to have that many touches for a Wolves team kind of shows he can get he's do some assists pretty soon, especially when their next 2 fixtures are square 2 in the FDR. I forgot who they're against, but should be pretty easy. And then he also has produced the most shots out of any defender on Wolves. So it's kind of I feel like he's do some attacking returns. So if you're considering dropping like Robertson or Trent to a more I don't want to say like a premium option, but more of in that middle tier, Semedo would be a great pick. He's also differential pick.
Yeah. You mentioned their next 2 game weeks. They're home to Newcastle, then home to Palace. So yeah, 2 pretty favorable matchups for them coming up. Any final words on Kilman? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say about Semedo. I think he didn't. He wasn't even in with Wolves for maybe the first game week or 2 or something like that, right? So that makes those numbers look even better. If I'm right,
those numbers are taken from just the past 2 game weeks when he played.
Oh, okay.
So he's comparing to other players in those 2.
Feel free to just ignore me then, guys.
All right, moving on from Kilman here. Let's just talk about who's on your watch list for game week 6 and beyond. Who's somebody you're looking at maybe bringing in this week, or just keeping an eye on and seeing how they play within the next few weeks. Taz, you want to start us off?
Sure. I have a couple of players, so feel free to jump in if you guys want to comment about them. First one is Ross Barkley. I mentioned him last weekend. for the Aston Villa team. He's at 5.9 million now. Might have not sure if he probably was more, but he's definitely a great differential pick. Since the 2 game weeks he started for Villa, he's returned a goal in each one, and he has had the most, I believe, shots on target or shots in Villa, or in the penalty area. One of those, he has had the highest most for Villa, so it kind of looks enticing, and he might be possibly in penalties. That's the kind of rumor I saw going around, so we won't know that for sure until Villa get a penalty, but somebody that I'm keeping on my watch list. If you do have that like 6.0 million midfielder that you're not happy with how he's performing, you can bring in Ross Barkley to cover that Aston Villa that looks in form right now. Also, somebody else I'm considering kind of maybe possibly is Bale. I wasn't big on him at first, but coming in, he only played for 18 minutes and he had 2 shots, and that was that totaled how much Son took the entire game, which was pretty interesting to me. And I know Bale, I've mentioned this before, Bale's kind of a more of like a true like kind of winger in the sense of like if he's in front of goal, he's gonna shoot it every time. I don't see him passing the ball ever, so I feel like he's gonna take many of those shots, and that's something you want to look out for in an FPL asset. But those are kind of the 2 of my things. And then I'm looking, we talked about Aguero. C4 is big on Aguero. That's somebody that under 5% ownership right now, and it's somebody definitely on my watch list, but I think as most of us are just waiting until Kane and his fixtures get tough to bring in Aguero. But until then, Phil Foden is 6.5. He has the most shots inside the box and from Man City currently with 8, and he has started in all 4 Premier League games. So that's something that we were kind of worried about in the beginning of the season about his playing time. But with the injuries to KDB elsewhere, he's a great pick in there.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to C4 next, since I assume you're going to talk about Aguero. Are you?
Yeah, so as I was saying, in terms of watch list by position, I already know up top there's only 2 players I'm looking at, Brewster and Aguero. Whenever I'm able to make those transfers, those 2 are my team automatically, along with Harry Kane, who then potentially would go to Jamie Vardy later on when he's healthy and a better run of fixtures. Defense I'm really looking at right now is taking Trent to like a 5.5 defender. The midfield's where I'm really struggling. I feel like now, like you look at Son, you look at Bale, you look at Rashford. There's a lot of these, I'm going to call them tweener assets that they're not quite premium, but they're really attractive. So I'm already kicking myself in the foot. Okay, would it be worth it to take Sterling down to Son for the next 3 or 4 game weeks? It's just him. I really like Rashford. I think for the million less, I like him more than Bruno Fernandes right now. And then again, you have Pulisic around there. You have Gareth Bale. Just that group is what I'm really looking at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Gash, how about you, man?
Yeah, so probably the 2 I'm looking at most, that aren't the big heavy hitters or super that people are considering a lot maybe at the moment. Ziyech is one, just because I think everyone's kind of focused on Pulisic coming back, where Ziyech is I think maybe 0.4 cheaper right now. I think he's a 7.9. So you save a little bit of money there. Yeah. So, and I know he's a lot less owned, which maybe is just because he's a little bit further behind on coming back from injury. But I think people know that Pulisic is primarily proven, whereas Ziyech isn't yet. So I think I said this before, but he could be a good way to get into that Chelsea attack as the cheapest of himself, Pulisic, Werner, and Havertz. So kind of keeping an eye there. And the other one is actually Antonio on West Ham. So I was thinking about that. The only downside to him is his price point for me personally, because it would kind of rip up my team structure. I really don't want to get rid of DCL unless he starts or stops scoring for a few games in a row. But Antonio's had the 3rd highest non-penalty expected goals this season of all forwards at 2.98, so just about 3. And he's also had the most penalty area touches of all forwards with 34. And I think that's really impressive, considering that West Ham have probably had the hardest start to the season in terms of the fixtures they've had to play so far. So at a certain point, they don't have a great next 5 or 6 or so. I think after game week 12-ish, their fixtures kind of turn. So there could be a point there where I want to bring him in and reevaluate depending on who's performing in my team and who isn't. But he's certainly one I want to keep an eye on, especially with West Ham with a 7-0 combined score in the last 2 weeks against Wolves and Leicester. So no slouches there either. So they are looking pretty solid overall.
Okay. And for me, I'm keeping an eye on Jack Grealish. Might save some money by downgrading James to him. Grealish has been pretty amazing. Let me just pull up his stats real quick. He had the 24-point haul against Liverpool. Only 3 this past week against Leicester. But someone who's maybe not as consistent, but the way Gasch talked about Villa earlier in the episode is kind of making me consider Grealish a little more. I'm also looking at. So I have Bruno Fernandes right now. I dropped KDB to him last week, but I don't feel too good about Bruno this week against Chelsea and next week against Arsenal. So I'm looking at Sterling or Son, trying to just wait for KDB to return. That's pretty much it though for my watch list. Anybody else you guys want to add, or is that it? Okay, and let's end with our captain picks for game week 6. Tazz, who are you looking at this week?
Just like last week, comes down between Kane and Salah for this week also. Last week I did on the podcast say Salah, but then later on switched to Kane. I think this week I'm going to say Salah and stick it out with him. He's playing at home against, I forgot what the team is, but Sheffield.
Sheffield.
Yeah, so I'm, Sheffield in the bottom half right now. I definitely think Salah, he's fixture proof anyways, but yeah, I think Salah will bring in a bigger hold than Kane this weekend.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Salah. I'm between Salah and whoever I'm going to bring in for Bruno, like I just mentioned, is going to be home between. But I like the matchup at home against a pretty weak Sheffield team, so I'm likely going to go Salah. Gash, how about you?
Probably Mo Salah. Again, my choice is between Salah, Kane, Sterling, and just the same boat as Tazz, where Kane is a pretty strong pick, but I think I'm leaning towards Salah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and C4?
Salah. If I give any other choices based on the fixtures, I'd probably go Aguero number 2 and then Harry Kane number 3.
Okay, so it looks like we all are going to go Salah. I don't know if we've all gotten the same captain yet. I don't think so.
Gameweek, and then me and Gash, we were geniuses.
Right, of course. Yeah. So, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
That's pretty much it.
No, pretty much it.
No.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming by. Not like you had much of a choice. This is your podcast as well. But thanks to everybody who's listening. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at FPL Hotline for captain picks and all these beautiful graphics that Tazz designs for us. So make sure you follow and then give Tazz some likes there. He puts a lot of time into the graphics.
Not too many. We don't want to inflate his ego.
Yeah, not too many likes. We're looking at maybe 75 would be a nice number. Nothing more. But new episodes every Thursday. I think we're going to be pretty consistent with the Thursday morning drops. So make sure to follow us, and good luck everybody this weekend, and we will see you all next week. Peace, guys.
See ya.